It's come close several times. This past season, I got hooked in the leg real bad, and there was quite a few accidents out on the water, but so far we haven't been bit.
A quiet tragedy hides beneath the swamp's surface. For years, Swamp People fans saw Jacob Landry as the fearless son of Troy Landry, the calm, steady hunter who tamed the bayou's wildest beasts. But behind the fame and grit was a man carrying heartbreak, exhaustion, and loss that no camera ever captured. What really happened to the man who seemed unshakable? In this video, we'll reveal the untold emotional and personal struggles that drove Jacob away from television. We'll uncover how fame, silence, and family shaped the legacy he continues to build far from the spotlight. The bayou's favorite son. Before the world came to know Jacob Landry through television, he was already a legend in the making, deep within the Louisiana bayou. Born and raised in Pierre Part, Jacob grew up under the shadow of cypress trees and the guidance of his father, Troy Landry, a man whose name became synonymous with courage and tradition. Life in the swamp wasn't glamorous. It was humid, unpredictable, and unforgiving. But for Jacob, it was home. The murky waters, the hum of insects, and the distant bellow of gators were not just sounds of nature. They were the rhythm of his life. When Swamp People premiered, audiences were instantly captivated by the Landry family. Jacob wasn't loud or boastful. He didn't need to be. His calm voice, sharp instincts, and unshakable focus spoke louder than words. Fans admired how he worked beside his father, a picture of respect and trust. There was a quiet strength about him, the kind that didn't demand attention, but earned it naturally. Every time he steered the boat through fog-thick channels or pulled in a massive gator with practiced precision, viewers saw a man who had mastered both his craft and his fear. Most of all, however, the series evoked that spirit so well, but failed to show occasionally the burden behind it. The days were long and started before dawn and ended well past sunset, with every moment accompanied by real danger. One slip of the hand, one slight wrong move could mean disaster. Jacob was not acting for the cameras. He was fighting to survive. And with that same steady resolve, he went into every hunt, reminding everyone that the bayou required both respect and resilience. In the passage of time, his character becomes bigger than just a mere entertainment in Swamp People. He becomes the representation of family, perseverance, and pride over the ancestry of Louisiana. Jacob, as seen by many fans, bridges generations from old traditions to newer voices. And in that image, they found most human strength, a belief that real strength does not come from fame, but rather devotion to one's roots. Still, fame has a way of changing even the most down-to-earth lives. The more seasons passed, the odder it all seemed to the fans. There was a shrinking of Jacob's appearances. Instead of his voice being the star of the show, it was relegated to working only in brief voicing. Sometimes episodes did not have him present at all. The change was subtle but acutely perceived, like fog rolling in over waters once familiar. Is he tired? Or is there backstage tension? Or something else entirely was happening that the cameras couldn't pick up? That was the question people began to ask. What is actually going on? Behind that quiet smile, Jacob was wrestling with questions that were far beyond the television screen. When that weight gets too heavy to bear, will one get to that point when legacy presses down? As that question led soon to travel down an unlikely course, not one involving gator hunts, but rather something more personal. No one realized then that Jacob's retreat from the cameras wasn't the end of his story. It was the beginning of a much deeper battle. The cost of living the legend. To millions of viewers, Jacob Landry's life looked like a rugged dream. Long days on the water, the thrill of the hunt, and the satisfaction of carrying on a proud family tradition. But beneath that image of adventure was a toll few could see. The swamp that gave him fame also demanded more from him than most people could endure. Every episode of Swamp People was a mixture of danger, endurance, and exhaustion. And for Jacob, that danger wasn't scripted. It was real. During a 2014 appearance on the Queen Latifah show, Jacob revealed a side of the job that fans rarely considered. He admitted that he had come close to being bitten by alligators several times, close enough to know that every hunt could be his last. He wasn't exaggerating. The gators weren't props. They were wild, unpredictable, and fast. One wrong move could mean a crushed arm or worse. He once recalled being hooked in the leg during a hunt, an accident that left a lasting scar and a quiet reminder of just how fine the line between control and chaos really was. Those dangers didn't disappear when the cameras stopped rolling. This is a project that has been a long day and night for everybody involved. Get up before dawn, and for hours find their way through the humid labyrinth of Louisiana waterways under the blistering sun of over 95 every day. The humidity was oppressive. It felt like the water was full of mud and the air was swarming with insects. While most would retreat to comfort after a long day's work, Jacob could hardly ever. The show was an everyday, every season consistent effort, combining energy and presence. But the physical strain was just another part of it all. What viewers did not see was the emotional fatigue that came from living a life so much tied to the demands of fame. Between shooting schedules and post-production obligations, time that could be better spent with his family had become even harder to find. Every hunt that excited fans on TV meant a day spent away from home, a missed dinner, and an untold bedtime story. For a man who placed husband and father above all else, this sacrifice became harder to balance. Family and friends were the first to see the difference. Jacob was growing tired, not of the swamp itself, but of the weight of performing constantly for the world. Fame, once flattering, had turned burdensome. Yes, he was proud to be the face of the culture in Louisiana, but there was a sense of invasion creeping in. While the fans saw a hero, Jacob saw a man who was slowly losing bits of himself to a version of life that was no longer his. As one close family friend later shared, Jacob loved the swamp. He loved the show. But more than that, he loved his family. And after a while, he started to feel like he couldn't give his best to both. That quiet tug-of-war between legacy and love became the defining conflict of his life. Jacob's father, Troy, once stated that when you're out there on the water, you've got to be on alert for everyone's safety, not just your own. And for Jacob, that would never end when they shut off the cameras. He took it home with him, worrying not only about the swamp dangers but also what the constant strain was doing to his family. The more successful Swamp People became, the more it cost him. As fans waited for answers, Jacob was already making the hardest choice of his life. To step back before the swamp took more than scars. Silence in the digital age. For years, Jacob Landry's online presence was as much a part of his identity as his place on Swamp People. Fans could scroll through photos of hunting trips, family gatherings, and glimpses of life on the bayou. His posts carried the same warmth and humility that made him so likable on screen. But then, without warning, the updates stopped. No new photos, no messages, no behind-the-scenes moments. For a man once so connected to his community of supporters, the silence was deafening. At first, people assumed it was just a break, a short pause between filming seasons. Yet months turned into years, and Jacob remained quiet. Theories began to swirl across forums and social media threads. Some speculated that he was filming in secret. Others whispered of personal struggles, and a few even wondered if he had fallen out with the production team. But as time went on, it became clear that Jacob's disappearance from social media was not an accident. It was a deliberate choice. What lay behind that silence was sheer exhaustion. After years of non-stop visibility, Jacob was truly tired of living under the unblinking eye of the public. Somewhere between a badge of honor and a badge of servitude, fame had come to acquire another quality for him. His every post drew opinions, judgments, and questions that became endless about his absence from swamp people. Some were nice, others were cutting, proof that even a simple family photo could inspire comment in the instant communication age. Noise that adds up to unbearable for a man who values privacy and authenticity. The outpouring of criticism regarding swamp people, and Jacob's decision to leave heightened. Ever since the early seasons, animal rights groups have protested against the show, claiming that it glorifies violence and cruelty toward alligators. The Landrys stood their ground, defending their actions by arguing that alligator hunting was legal and crucial to maintain ecological balance in the Louisiana wetlands. The hate waves continued to wash in particular for Jacob, being deemed something he was not, a villain for following lifeways of the same crafts and traditions that had sustained his community for generations, stung. How do you explain to outsiders that the swamp's rhythm is about respect, not destruction? With the spotlight growing stronger, Jacob's desire to protect those who truly mattered, his family, grew ever stronger. He didn't want his sons, Ridge and Case, to grow up as public figures caught in the same spotlight he felt was starting to suffocate him. In contrast to countless reality stars who capitalize on selling their personal lives, Jacob took his silence as a shield. He once reportedly said to an acquaintance, "I want my kids to have a childhood, not a brand." That short statement encapsulated his entire philosophy, a quiet resistance to a culture that worships visibility. The withdrawal stage was compounded by the growing doubts about reality television itself. With increasing skepticism, the fans started taking to online forums to debate about how real or fake the show was. While some were willing to draw a line between what really was and what wasn't, there were those who added that scenes were sometimes restaged and reshot for heightened drama. Jacob, in keeping with his concern for the integrity of the work, was thus adamant about stating his position. The hunts were real, and no Hollywood was involved. Nonetheless, subjecting himself to the justification of his lifestyle to strangers was beginning to tire him. So he stepped aside, no longer taking up battle with anything he didn't seek. He unfriended, unfollowed, logged off that day, not in hiding from the world, but absolutely reclaiming his peace. In a world where to be silent is often to disappear, Jacob used silence as his statement. He didn't owe it to the world to explain. He didn't need likes or comments to define himself. His quiet became his strength. But while the world mistook his silence for disappearance, Jacob's voice was beginning to echo in another, far more meaningful way. The unseen battle within. Behind Jacob, Landry's steady eyes and calm demeanor was a storm that few ever saw. To most, he was the fearless swamp hunter, the man who faced down gators with unwavering control and carried the weight of a family legacy without flinching. But beneath that composed exterior was someone quietly struggling with the toll that fame, loss, and constant danger had taken on him. The truth is, Jacob Landry wasn't just battling the elements of the bayou, he was fighting an unseen war within himself. The breaking point for Jacob may have come after the tragic loss of fellow Swamp People cast member Mitchell Gwist. Mitchell's sudden death in 2012 sent shockwaves through the entire community, serving as a harsh reminder of life's fragility. To those who worked alongside him, including Jacob, the loss was more than just the passing of a friend. It was a wake-up call. It underscored the reality that even legends of the swamp were not invincible. The tragedy lingered in Jacob's heart, quietly shaping the way he viewed both his career and his own mortality. Those around Jacob Pickles noticed small changes in him as the years rolled by. He was more pensive and inwardly directed now than in the past. The easy smile was still there, but now it seemed to carry an added weight. Fame, once a journey that allowed him to expound on his life with the whole world, turned out to be a millstone. Long days of filming tired him. Physical demand had increased. Constant performance ability required him to make strength appear day in and day out. The weariness, not just from physical exertion but emotional as well, bore heavily on him. Reality shows can be a double-edged sword, but for Jacob, the trade secret in its glory, and not without its due share of performance, was that where he did not have the energy to keep a hard and unbreakable front for his much-needed quiet moments, he wrestled with the demons of exhaustion, with being cast as alligator hunt. He battled identity, the heaper, that way shunned what had become a hassle. Because I once loved it, or because of expectation from millions. That question, much more haunting than any predators in the swamp, entered his mind. Gradually, the noise and hubbub of fame became harder to ignore. The cameras, which had till then been considered allies, began to seem stranger cameras, looking for peace, real peace, not from applause and fame, but from a quiet background retreat from the spotlight finally made sense. He no longer ran away from the world. He ran to himself. Those who know Jacob very personally say that his decision was not sudden, but was very gradual, like the slow ebbing away of tides. He simply wanted to breathe again, be a father under no camera, and rediscover what the swamp meant sans deadlines or production schedules. Mostly, he meant to heal, find some balance after famous years of pushing through pain invisible to everyone else. In stepping away from the show, Jacob wasn't giving up. He was reclaiming the parts of himself fame could never own. Legacy beyond the cameras. Though Jacob Landry may no longer appear in every episode of Swamp People, his legacy continues to ripple across the bayous of Louisiana. His story didn't end when the cameras stopped rolling. It evolved into something more grounded, more meaningful. Away from the spotlight, Jacob has chosen a quieter, richer life, one rooted in family tradition and the timeless rhythm of the swamp that shaped him. For a man who spent years under the glare of television fame, finding peace in simplicity was not a retreat. It was a homecoming. In his hometown of Pierre Part, Jacob is no celebrity. He's a neighbor, a husband, a father, and a mentor. Locals say that he still rises before sunrise, stepping into the same cypress-lined waters that once made him famous. Only now, the goal isn't to perform for cameras or thrill an audience, it's to teach. Jacob brings his sons, Ridge and Case, along for the ride, guiding them through the swamp with the same patience and purpose his father, Troy Landry, once showed him. These aren't lessons in hunting alone, they're lessons in life, about responsibility, respect for nature, and the quiet pride of hard work. The generational bond forms the kernel of Jacob's story. Ridge, the eldest, is already upholding the family pride. In 2023, the fans felt all the excitement as Ridge stood off against an 11-foot gator, a moment that felt reflexive, almost cinematic. Jacob observed with the calm pride of yesteryears, feeling similar to what his father may have felt, realizing the Landry legacy was in hands that understood its worth. Not about fame anymore, but about something worthy, a heritage of valor, modesty, and love for the swamp that stands for their being. Those close to Jacob interviewed describe him as the same man the viewers fell in love with years ago, humble, sincere, and deeply rooted. When people see him in town, he does not act like a TV personality. There is no wall across, no aura of celebrity. He has warmth, approachability, and sincerity. Just good old, everyday Jacob, who once joked with his father over the call and, through turbulent waters, maneuvered the boat. That humility stands him out for many. In a way, the guy became less present on the show Swamp People, but his impact and influence remain unquestionable. A real calmness and intrinsic respect toward Louisiana's culture have contributed to shaping the tone of the show throughout the years. Even when he is not seen on screen, the Landry spirit, which he stands for, hard work, loyalty, and family, still binds the series together. Viewers see it in how other cast members talk about him and how the show still holds up its end of the bargain over the contrast between hunting and heritage. Jacob still shows very little of his private life online. No loud posts or sponsorship ads on his social networking. The posts were made to be real. A sunrise over the bayou, his kids with a catch, or the still reflection of the swamp at dusk. These images are small doors into the world he has chosen, peaceful, purposeful, and genuine. They remind fans that fulfillment does not come from fame, but from living life. Thanks for watching. If this story moved you, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more deep dives into the real lives behind TV legends. And don't stop here. Click the next video on your screen to uncover more untold truths from Swamp People and beyond.